y'all, today we are making sweet orange marmalade. This recipe is perfect for beginners. It is zestful, sweet, and gloriously sticky. This recipe will be just the thing you reach for over and over again to brighten up your breakfast or level up lunch or use as a sauce for any meat. But even better, this recipe is simple because marmalades can be downright finicky to make. Before this 1-hour recipe from start to finish, my previous attempts ended in tears, burnt fingers, and sticky pots. That being said, there are many ways to make orange marmalade, but this recipe isn't fussy. This recipe is simple, savory, and straightforward so that you can keep your sanity. We'll use standard navel oranges, sugar, and pectin, and if you like, a splash of vanilla. I'll guide you step by step on how to make and can this recipe, but first, let me show you some of the many uses you'll get out of this recipe, and while you'll probably find yourself canning this by the dozens. Let's start at breakfast. Do you have a weakness for bagels? Yeah, me too. Try dumping a heaping tablespoon onto your cream cheese topped with a few nuts. Oh my, good morning somebody. Or change up your morning oatmeal routine. Orange marmalade makes a sweet and tart oatmeal topping in the morning that is already flavored to perfection. And don't throw out those orange peels that we'll use. They add a delicious orange infusion to herbal teas and can be made into all-natural cleaners by submerging in vinegar, herbs, and essential oils. Now let's talk lunch. You can easily add pizzazz to a homemade vinaigrette dressing by adding a touch of sun-kissed sweetness your salads will love. Close for this one. I often doctor up barbecue sauce or add it to my homemade mix by adding a few generous spoonfuls to up the sweetness and stickiness factor on chicken, duck, or fish. Lifesaver. Now let's talk dinner. With this recipe, you can create an instant glaze that pairs deliciously with anything from baked goods to brisket. Stuff a pork loin or chicken breast with several spoonfuls of jam and bake as normal. Now pat yourself on the back, you've just cooked smarter. Do you sometimes feel a little cosmopolitan but want to stay in your comfy clothes? Yeah, me too. You must try stirring a spoonful or two of marmalade into gin or prosecco to enjoy a sweet citrus drink, or use it for everyday use to flavor up your homemade kombucha. The list on how to use orange marmalade goes on and on, so be sure to check out the description box for the full recipe and many more ideas. If this is our first time meeting, hi, I'm Cassandra from Becoming a Farm Girl. I share canning recipes and kitchen gardening tips for homestead dreamers. Now let's start making some sweet orange marmalade. Start by thoroughly washing, rinsing, and drying the fruit. Then, collect the zest of one orange and set aside. This recipe has that bright and forward orange flavor with subtle secondary flirty notes that give an acute citrus pucker. It's definitely not sour at all and leans sweet. This zest will give us tons of flavor. Now you'll cut 8 oranges into quarters. Using a grapefruit spoon with serrated edges, but you can also use a knife or your hands to remove the column, seeds, and rinds from the flesh of the oranges. While these components contain natural pectin, they also impart a bitter, tart taste which I like to avoid. Use 2 bowls to separate the rinds, central column, and seeds from the orange meat and juice. Don't worry if you don't have a clean separation. You can always use kitchen scissors to cut away large sections of the pith that remain. Here's a look at how my batches usually turn out. Place a large pan over medium heat and add your pulp with 3½ cups of water. While that's reaching a boil, revisit your orange peels and use a vegetable peeler to remove the zest off of 4 orange peels. Try to limit the amount of white pith you remove as you peel. Next, thinly slice or dice the peeled zest into the density you prefer. Now, I'm one that enjoys the subtle texture of the peel, and so I treat it like a garnish. The size is up to you. Go ahead and add your sliced peels to the pot. Now go ahead and pour in a minimum of 3½ cups of sugar or more, depending on the sweetness you prefer. The combination of sugar and pectin is what allows this recipe to set. Continue stirring. Next, add in 1 pack or about 50 grams of pectin. Keep stirring and turn up your heat to bring to a boil for 4 to 6 minutes until the mixture begins to thicken. While oranges naturally contain pectin, because we didn't use the part of the citrus peel or pith to avoid the bitter notes, we'll need to add it now. Pectin will give your marmalade that spoonable body. As your mixture thickens, you may want to perform a cold plate test. Pour a small amount of boiling marmalade onto the plate and put it in the freezing compartment of the refrigerator for 2 to 3 minutes. If the mixture gels, you can be confident your marmalade will set. But if you don't prefer that method, look no further than your pot of marmalade. When you start to notice the pot forming a wrinkly skin around the perimeter and moving forward towards the center of your pot, you can be assured that your jam will set. Now let's move on to canning, but you don't have to because this recipe will last for 3 months in your fridge. While your marmalade comes to a boil, or even the night before, is a perfect time to sterilize your jars, and this isn't hard at all. I usually prefer one of 2 options by either running my jars through a short cycle in the dishwasher, but you can also hand wash, rinse, and dry the jars in a 200-degree oven without the lids for 10 minutes. Now it's time to ladle that hot marmalade goodness into sterilized half-pint canning jars to within a 1/4 inch of the rim. Be sure to skin off any foam. Remove air bubbles by running a long plastic or wooden skewer between the jar and the jam. Next, wipe the rims with a clean, damp cloth using water or vinegar to clean any spills, which may prevent your jars from sealing. Now, place unused lids on top of your jars and secure with ring bands until they are fingertip tight or secured, but not aggressively so. Now it's time to process our jars using a 10-minute water bath so that they're shelf stable for the next year. Using a jar rack, lower the jars into the boiling water of your water bath canner. Next, add enough water to cover at least an inch above your jars. Bring water to a boil for 10 full minutes, then lift the jars out of the water and let cool for a minimum of 12 and up to 24 hours undisturbed. As your jars cool, you'll hear the jars making clicking pops. To confirm the jars have sealed, remove the ring. The tops will be slightly indented in the center and will not yield a pop when gently pressed. Most of your jars will seal within hours of cooling. Store in a cool, dark place. Once open, or if they haven't sealed properly, store them in the refrigerator for up to 1 month. After the jars have cooled for a minimum of 12 hours, check the seals and remove the screw bands. Be sure to date and label your jars. To get weekly canning and kitchen gardening tips to help you say yes to your farm dream and a small space in your spare time, join me here weekly. I'll see you in my kitchen or garden soon.